about the DOM, document object model. We will quickly go through the portion which we have already covered, and those who are not gone through the who are not present for the last session, they can get more insights of the document object model. JavaScript it is contained, and this interaction is accomplished through the API, and that API is called as a document object model, or the DOM. So according to the W3C definition, what is a DOM is? A DOM is a platform and language neutral interface that will allow programs and scripts to dynamically access and update the content, structure, and style of the document. So it can dynamically access the content, the structure and style, and if it is required, it can modify that. Okay, we will see how that with the examples in the later section. This is the DOM structure we looked into. Basically, this DOM tree, we already looked into this, how the each tag is structured. This is the HTML document for which this is the DOM tree representation. We have everything inside the HTML document, and inside the HTML document we have head and the body section. In case of a DOM tree, the root element is always the document. So document is the root element. So after the document we have the HTML, and then the whole HTML structure goes in. HTML has two elements, head and the body. Inside the head we have two elements, meta, title, and the body has many child nodes. Okay, h1p, these are the h1p, these are all siblings. Already you know, if nodes are at the same level, they are called as the siblings, and if the node is one level below the another node, then that particular node is called as a child node, and this is called as a parent node. So as you go up from the bottom of the tree, you will access the parent nodes. As you go down the tree, you will access the child nodes. So this is the structure of the DOM tree. Okay, DOM, each element within the HTML document is called as a node. So every no element, whatever the element we have inside the HTML document, those are called as the node. And there are three types of node. One is called as the element node, text node, and the attribute node. And irrespective of what type of a node it is, all nodes in the DOM share a common set of properties and methods. So all these nodes have a common set of properties and methods. We will see what are those properties and the methods, how we can use it, we will see in the later section. So this is the example. Okay, this is a simple example. I have a paragraph. Inside a paragraph there is a child element. So you can see this is the link element, and I have a paragraph. This is a parent, this is child. I have two element. So you can see two element nodes, two HTML elements. These are called as a element node. And every content, the content of the HTML document, it is classified as a text node. For example, uh, between the p tags we have a text, photo of conservatory pond in, that is a text node. And after that again, a is the this is the child, that is a link element node. And inside the link I have two things. One is the attribute I have, and then I have a content. This particular content is a text node, and this attribute, whenever we have any kind of attribute, that will be separated as an attribute node. Inside the attribute node we will have the attribute and its value. What are the different other properties of DOM node? Is like attributes. It gives a collection of node attributes. Child nodes, what it will give? It will give a node list from whichever the node you are selected. If you access the property called as child nodes, it will get you the node list. And first child, So this would be the first child of this particular node. So whatever the node you have selected, if I say this is the node I have selected, then the first child is, or obviously there is only one child, A. So it will give the first child. Similarly, last child. So if there are siblings, then first child property will give the first child element, and the last child will give the last element. Next sibling. So if you want to move on to the next sibling, you have the next sibling property, next sibling node of this particular node. Similar to next sibling, there is a previous sibling. Previous sibling, if you are accessing the next sibling or previous sibling, that is how you can navigate through the different nodes. Node name, so whatever the name of the node. Node type, we saw the three types: element, text, or attribute. It will give that type. Node value, if there is any value, that value will be can be accessed. Then parent node, what is the parent node? Those are the different properties for the DOM nodes. The DOM document object is the root JavaScript object representing the entire HTML document. So as we know, document object is the root, and it represents the entire HTML document, and it contains some of the properties and methods that we will use extensively in our development, and is globally accessible as a document. So document is the object, and it has certain properties and methods which we can use. Examples of the some of the properties: document dot doc type. So document type we can access. Dot name, so if you put it in some variable, you will come to know what kind of a document it is. And input encoding, by default the it will have the default values. Suppose if you have a HTML document, by default this will be set as HTML, and by default whatever the encoding that is used, that will be set as a document input encoding property. Whatever the value is used, their example ISO 88591, that is the encoding that is used, that will be default yeah, page encoding that will be used. So one example I want to show is DOM. This is okay, document type. So this is a simple HTML document. I have, this is the script section. JavaScript type is variable a is equal to document dot doc type dot name. That is the property of the document object. And once I get that document property, I'm just displaying. You know, alert is a it displays a window, and it displays whatever the value that you are included as a parameter. In this case, you have a text value which says document type is colon space, and whatever the document type, that is concatenated. Whatever the value you get, that will be concatenated. We'll just load this page and you will see the output. Okay, you can see HTML. The doc type is this particular property, whatever we talked about, this particular property, that property is displayed as a alert. Next is methods. Which are the methods that are available with the document object? So document object is the root object, or the root node, which represents the root node, which represents a complete HTML document. What kind of objects it has? Methods it has: create attribute, create element, create text node. So this will create to create the three different types of the nodes. One is the attribute node, element node, and the a text node. If you want to dynamically create those nodes, you can use these particular properties. Create attribute creates an attribute node, create element, it creates an element node, and create text node method will create the text node. and this is the most important. We will be using these two methods frequently, and mostly this one, get element by id. Okay, and this id is the name, the that you give to the each of the html element. So what it will return the element node whose id attribute matches the past id parameter. So inside your html document, you give the id property can be set for the every element, and id is equal to some name you will give, and here you will say get element by id that name. What it will give you, it will return that particular element. This is get element by the tag name. So whatever the tag html tags we have, it will get that particular all the nodes which matches this particular name. Returns node list of elements whose tag name matches the pass name parameter. So we have examples, you will understand that. So here inside the your HTML document, I have a statement called variable ABC is equal to document. Document is the object, and it has a method get element by ID, and ID name is specified as a latest comment. If you look into your HTML document, you can find that particular ID, this latest comment, is set for this div element. So what will happen is this particular element will be accessed here. So we will have a access to this element. This particular object div object will be assigned to ABC, and if you want to make any changes, you can make changes on top of that. This is get element by id. Next one is get elements by tag name. Then you said div. So how many divs are there? There are two divs are there. What this particular statement will do, if you see here, returns a node list. So because there are more than one element that has a tag name as a div, here more than one, two are there. So it will give the all those reference to all those elements. So we can have access to this as well as access to this. The type of object returned by the method document get element by id described in the previous section is an element node object. So when we whatever this returns, what it returns is a this element, in this case a div. This element object id is returned, and in this case there are multiple objects, so it will be sent as a list. This represents an HTML element in the hierarchy contained between the opening tag and the closing tags of for that particular element. So this is nothing but whatever the HTML elements we have from the opening to closing the closing of that particular element, we will get that particular content as an object. Essential elements node properties. So what are the different properties? Class name, current value for the class attribute of this HTML element, id. Okay, we know that current value for the id of this particular element. Inner HTML, this is very important. This represents all the things inside the tags. This can be read or return to, and is the primary way which we update the particular divs using the JavaScript. So what when we say this get element id, what it will get me is this particular whatever is between the opening and the closing of that particular element, it will give that content. And when I say inner html, this will return the object. When I say object dot inner html, what it will give me is this particular. So there are two paragraphs, it will give me the two paragraphs. That is what the inner html. That is how you can read it. If you want to modify that particular, you want to change that particular content, you can make the changes using the same inner html. You can overwrite whatever you want to overwrite, you can do the overwrite, and that is how you can change the display. We have the example, we will see how to do that. Style, the style attribute and element, we can read and modify this property. So we can access the style of that particular element, and we can modify if we want. We have the example for that, we will see. Tag name, it is the tag name of the particular element. The document dot write method is used to create output to the HTML page from the JavaScript. So document dot write is the method that will create the HTML page for from the JavaScript. The modern JavaScript programmer will want to write to the HTML page, but in particular location, not always at the bottom. Okay, using the DOM document, the HTML DOM element objects, we can do exactly that using the inner HTML property. So here is the one example how we can modify. We have declared one variable called latest, and I will access the object, the element, the object of the element node, which has the ID called latest comment. How to do that? Document dot get element by ID, that is the method, and I will specify the ID name. We have already seen the example. This is the latest comment. So this will get me this particular div object. The statement, we got the div object variable old message. Now we have this object, that div object is there. Then I will say that object dot inner HTML. So two paragraphs are there. Those two paragraphs are returned as a values for this old message. Then what I will do, I want to change that particular the content. Then I will say latest whatever this object dot inner HTML is equal to old message. I will keep the old message. I will add a new paragraph. Okay. Now the page which is displayed will have a new content. I will show the example code for that. This is the So you can see here what I have is a I have added one on click so that you will come to see the changes. Everything is same here. This is the same document which is specified there. There are two divs. Divs are there. The first div has an ID called latest comment. Okay, then after that I have added one button. The reason for adding that button, I am on click, I am using the on click event and I am calling those changes. Suppose I want to add one more paragraph, I will do it using the JavaScript, but on the click of the button. So I have added button, and we will see the events. Okay, what are the different events we will be covered later in the same section. I have added on click is equal to change div. So whenever there is a click on the button, it will call the JavaScript function. Okay, and inside the JavaScript function, whatever is in this particular slide, this three codes are written here. The first is getting the element object which has the ID latest comment. So it will get the object of this div. Then next step is old message. I'm storing the old message, whatever is how I am doing latest dot inner HTML. Then latest dot inner HTML, I am modifying it with the old message, and I have added new. So you can see what I have added here, updated this div with JavaScript, and also I am making it as a strong. So it will give a bold look. Let me load this. This is 5 underscore sample doc. This is 500 sample doc. This is how the page looks, right? Rest of the things is same, except that I have added one button here. Okay, added a button which content is change div content. That is what the content I have name I have given for that particular button. When I click on that, it will call the JavaScript. So and then it will add this is the element where I am making the changes. I will add one more paragraph here which is bold. So I will click on click, JavaScript is called. Now you can see the page content is changed, updated with this updated this div with JavaScript. That is the text that is included. That is how I can add. So whatever is the content, I will keep on adding. Like if you without refreshing, if you keep on clicking, it will keep on appending that particular text to the HTML. That is how you can modify the HTML content using the JavaScript. This is another example. There are more methods available which will help with the modifying the HTML. Although the inner HTML technique works well and is very fast, there is more verbose technique available to us that builds output using the DOM. So we can use the inner HTML, we can modify, we can repaint it. That is how you can change the content. There are other methods or the functions that are available with the DOM which can help with that particular work. So DOM functions like create text node. So you can create a new text node, remove a child. I can remove a child from a particular node, and I can append a child. Allows us to modify an element in more rigorous way. So this is how it can be modified in a more rigorous way. This is the example. The same example what we have seen here. You can see latest is assigned with the object of the element which has the id latest comment. Once we have that object, latest dot inner html, whatever the current html content is there, that is saved in the old message. New message is equal to old message, and we have added something. Suppose if you want to make certain changes on top of it, then you can say remove child. uh, on this particular object you are calling a remove child. What it will do is it will remove particular child. Which child it will remove? Latest dot first child. So you have passed the property latest dot first child. So whichever is the first paragraph, that will be removed. And next what you are doing, latest dot append child. Append child is you are just whatever the content is there, you are going to append it. So you are calling the method append child document dot create text node. So in the document we have a method called create text node which will create the new node with this content. Whatever is in the content, it will create and it will append to the latest object. That is how it will be displayed. We can make use of these particular methods also. Changing the element style. Suppose you want to change the style. Now we saw the how we can change the content of a particular HTML document. Now we want to change the style of a particular element. We can add or remove any style using the style or the class name property of the element node. Its usage is shown below to change the node's background color and 3-pixel border. So here is the one example. In this particular example, comment tag. So there is some kind of a element is there which has a tag, specific tag, and that element is that object is accessed using document dot get element by id by specifying the tag. Then once you have that object dot style dot background color, you are setting some style here, and you are setting some kind of a border width 3 pixel. We will see the example for this. Okay, now this is the example. You can see here I use the same content. The content is the same. I'm accessing this first div. Okay, first div latest comment. Once I get that object dot inner html is saved here, and I have a new message which is comprising of the old and the some additional paragraph. Then I'm not changing it. So basically these two things are not required. Then what I'm doing, alert will give a message. I don't want this. If you are having some kind of a problems with your HTML document, then you can use the alert so that you will come to know where the problem is. I use many alert method. Let me keep this last one later. Alert latest dot inner HTML. How it will, you can see the what value is inside that, what the value inner HTML will get. So that will come, that will you will come to know. Then what I'm doing, latest dot style dot background, some kind of a color, and Since border width, we do not have a border. Specifying a border width is I did not see any kind of a change. So what I did, latest dot style dot border. So border is a composite property which has like a color, then what kind of a line, how much thick it should be. I'm setting green, solid, and 3 pixel. And this particular method is called on click, right? That is not changed. This button has on click, it will call this particular JavaScript function. We'll see how this one works. Okay, so this is the normal page which we have here, right? We did not make any change, but using this method we are changing the background color, and also we are providing the border width. So I will click on this button. Okay, so when I click on that button, what happened was, on click this method was called, and inside the method it made all these changes. At the end there is a alert, as you know, it will open a pop-up window, and whatever is passed as a parameter, that value will be displayed. Latest dot inner html, what you are seeing here, the first paragraph, okay, inside the div, and the second paragraph, you can see the html, this and this, that is what is the content. Okay, then I say click, the function is complete. Now you can see dynamically you change the style of this particular div. Okay, that is how you can change the style of any kind of a html document. Changing an element's style, the class name property is normally better choice because it allows the styles to be created outside the code and thus better accessible to designers. One example, so the problem with the earlier thing is, like, we had all the styles specified inside our JavaScript. So that is how there is a overlapping of the JavaScript and the style. So one way to just segregate that is using the class name. This is the example where we are using the class name. Comment tag is equal to document dot get element id specific tag. For that we want to change the style. Then once you get that object, comment tag object, what you can do, the property object tag dot class name, you will specify whichever the class, you remember the class selectors, id selectors, that is how you created the styles. You can assign one of the class which you want to apply that kind of a style to comment tag. So it will the style of that particular element will be changed. And also HTML5 introduces the class list element, which allows you to add, remove, or toggle the CSS class on an element. How to do that? We use the element dot class list dot add class, and you can keep on adding, giving the classes that are available. So it will be dynamically, you can add or remove, or you can make a toggle between the different classes. So some specific HTML DOM element properties for certain tag types. So for certain tag types, we have the certain specific DOM properties. href, we know href attribute is used to tags to specific URL to link, which is the tag that is associated A. Name is it is you can use this particular property for the link, input, text area, and the form. Source src links to an external URL that should be loaded into the page. So we know this src, and which tags it is available. Image, where you want to give the location of the image. Input, a file, iframe, script, things like that. Then value is related to the value attribute of an input tags. Often the value of the input field is user defined, and we use the value to get that user input. So where we get the values for the tags input, so user will give some kind of a input, text area, and the submit. When we are doing the submit, we get the values. Next, we will see the JavaScript events. There are one of the event you already saw is a on click. So there are different events that you can make use. That is how your web application development requires various different types of events, and based on those events, you will take particular action. So some of the events is like on click, on double click. Suppose you want to use some keyboard events that you can do. Some of the form events you want to use, some of the frame events you want to use. There are different events are there. Based on your requirement, particular event can be made utilized to implement certain aspects of your application. A JavaScript event is an action that can be detected by the JavaScript. So it is event, you already know, it is some kind of a event that will be detected and some kind of action is taken. We say then then event is a triggered and then it can be caught by JavaScript function, which then do something in response. So that is what we just saw. So something event will trigger something, and using that trigger mechanism, it will be caught. Okay, caught by the JavaScript function, and whatever the response we want to have for that particular event, you have it as implemented inside that particular function. In the original JavaScript world, event could be specified right in the HTML markup with hooks to the JavaScript code. That is what the example you saw. A more powerful framework were developed, and website design and best practices were refined. This original mechanism was supplanted by the listener approach. The first approach is like you inside the HTML, you provide a kind of a hooks. When that particular event happens, it will call the JavaScript code. Okay, that is how it can be done. A more sophisticated manner is to use the listener. So what the listener will do, a listener will listen to the events, whatever the events, and whenever that event happens, let's say you have created a listener for on click event, it will listen to that. Whenever there is a on click, listener will listen that, and there are the for that event, there is a event handlers. So the event handlers will take a whatever the required response should be given, that will be taken care of by the event handler. So JavaScript events, one is the old inline technique, and second one is a new layered listener technique. So what you will do here in the old technique, you have a source file, inline.javascript.js. You have included all your functions, JavaScript functions inside this particular file, and in the form you will use the events inline. So for example, for the form, on submit is one of the event. Then you will call the validate. Once you call this, once we are submitting, on submit of the form, this particular method is called. And what this particular method will do, that implementation is provided here. So you will do some kind of a validation, whether different fields are there, whether name is proper, certain field is according to the requirement. Those kind of a validation you can do in that particular function. Other functions are there for this input: name, on hover. So there is a on hover event is there. We are calling the method hover, which is in the this particular JavaScript. Also on hover and on focus. When we bring that particular element into focus, what is the meaning of the focus? Either you will tab and go to that particular element, or you use the mouse and click on that particular element. That is how that particular element will come into focus. When it comes into focus, it will call this method focus. Similarly, there is one more method, one more input for email, and on hover is there, hover method is there, on focus, focus method is there, and there is a submit button. On click, we are calling the validate. So those are the old technique, old inline technique. The new technique is like you have the listeners, just you will have the JavaScript, and you will implement the listeners here. So those listeners will listen to the particular event, and it will automatically call the respective functions. So inline event handler approach, we already saw the example how the I use the on click to call the JavaScript function. That is the inline event handling approach. For this example, if you wanted to alert a pop-up when clicking a div, you might program. So you have certain div inside your HTML document, and you have given the name id is equal to example1, and you are using on click. When your user goes and click on that particular div, what will happen? Alert is a method. uh, it will pop up a window saying hello. So that is what will happen here. The problem with this type of programming is that HTML markup and corresponding Java script logic are woven together. It does not make use of layers. That is, it does not separate the content from the behavior. So we know that HTML is predominantly for the content, and JavaScript using which we want to create the behavior. When we have the inline, both are overlapping. So in order to have them separate, inline is not a good method, good approach. So that particular problem is solved using the listener approach. In listener approach, how do we do the same? The listening can be done in like a different methods. First is you will create some kind of a variable greeting box, and you will get the element object having a id as example one. How to do that? Document dot get element by id, and you will specify the particular id here. Greeting box dot on click. Once I get this object, the element object, dot on click is equal to alert good morning. Now what you are doing is you are binding a listener, and for this particular element you are binding on click. Okay, on click to calling this particular alert good morning. So that is how you are binding it. Now when user comes and click on that, this particular alert good morning will invoke, and you can see this particular implementation is not inside the HTML. It is in the it is separate JavaScript. It is going with along with the JavaScript. Okay, that is how you are separating the JavaScript as well as the HTML. Second way to do is just first way is calling that object dot particular event, in this case on click, and you will is equal to, you will assign okay what it has to do. So maybe you will call another JavaScript function which has the implementation, or directly you will tell what it needs to be done. In this particular example, we get the element object here, element object dot add event listener. So we are adding a event listener to this particular object. So this is the method that is used. So what kind of a event you are adding? Click event you are adding, and when click happens, what should be done? It will call this particular method. So that is what is done. I have added one click event, and also say, let's say you want to add more events, you can do that to the same event. Here element object dot add event listener. What kind of a event you are adding? Mouse out. We will see different kinds of events that are available in the later section. So first here understand, we added one click as well as mouse out. Mouse out is like when you are moving away the mouse from that particular element, that is when this event will be fired. And if this event occurs, what it will do? It will call alert goodbye. So this is how it can either we can use this method or this method. And in IE8 there is one more additional thing that is added which you can use, element object dot attach event. So the name of the method is attach event, and you will tell what kind of a event you want to attach, click, and what it needs to done. Listener approach. What if we wanted something more elaborate when an event is triggered? In such cases, the behavior would have to be encapsulated within the function as shown. Okay, so I told about the function. You see the function display date, then you are taking a date, new date. So we already know this object we have already seen. When we say new date, it will create a whatever is the current time and date, it will create that object. Alert, you clicked on you clicked this on, and you will display d dot to string. It will convert that date object into string, and it will display. This is what you are doing. Then what you are doing is element, variable element is equal to document dot get element id, and you are specifying the id. Whichever element has this id, that object will be assigned to element. And then what you are doing, element dot on click. So this dot on click is equal to display date, display the date. The display the date is nothing but you are calling the function. Okay. And using other approach, element dot add event listener, click comma display the date. So here goes the event, here goes the function, which function you want to call. An alternative to shown in the 6.2 is to use anonymous functions. So anonymous function is here you have created a function called display the date. Let us say you don't want to give the name for that function, you can use the anonymous function. Rest is same here, event dot on click. Okay, instead of giving the name of the function, here you will say just function, okay, bracket, then you will start the function. You notice here there is no name, so that is why it is called as an anonymous function. The same implementation without giving a name. No matter which type of event we encounter, they are all DOM event objects. So everything is a event objects, and event handlers associated with them can access and manipulate them. Typically, we see the events passed to the function handler as a parameter named E. So all, no matter what, how you access them, all are event objects, and these event objects are handled by the some handlers, right? We saw some of the examples of the handler, and how we call them. It will be a function and some name, and we pass the event. It is passed as E, so automatically it get the particular object. And inside here, whatever you want to, however you want to handle that particular event, you can have the code for that particular event. So, bubbles, if events bubbles property is set to true, so the bubbles is the property, event property. If it is set to true, then there must be an event handler in place to handle the event, or it will bubble up to its parent and trigger an event handler there. So, when the bubbles property, event object has a bubbles property, if it is set to true, there must be an event handler for that particular. If some event happens, event handler must be implemented there. Let us say if event, that particular event handler is not there, then it will bubbles up to the parent. So if parent has that event will be fired. Cancelable, the cancelable property is also boolean value that indicates whether or not the event can be cancelled. So suppose cancelable is the property, based on true or false, you can make that particular event as cancelled. Prevent default, a cancelable default action for an event can be stopped using the prevent default method in the you will see it in the next slide. What prevent default will do, if by default it cancelable is a true, then it will stop that. It will not make it as a cancelable. It will not cancel the event. So that is when you use the prevent default. Let us say when you are submitting on submit, you are submitting a form, and if there is any validation error, by default it will get cancelled, and we don't want to cancel that particular event, then you will use the prevent default. This is the example, prevent default behavior. If by default e dot cancelable is a true, then you will set it as e dot prevent default. So this is how you can stop that particular event from getting cancelled by default. These are the different events. Okay, event types, different event types. There are several classes of event with several types of event within each class specified by the W3C. So these are the different types of the events we have. One is the mouse events. Whatever the actions related to the mouse, we have events for that. Whatever the actions related to the keyboard, we have events for that. Whatever the actions related for the form, okay, we have events and frame. So the HTML document is inside the frame, so that particular frame has also events. So we will see what are the different types of events we can have. Mouse events, already you know many of the events that are associated with the mouse. On click, whenever you click, make a click, that particular thing will go as an event, that is a on click event. On double click, when you are clicking two times, that is the on double click. On mouse down, okay, on mouse down is the mouse is pressed down over an element, so you move to your mouse to particular element, and you just press it down, right? Mouse, when you are doing press down, this particular event will get fired. On mouse up, when mouse was released, once you press and you release on that element, that makes two events. On mouse down, on mouse out. On mouse over, okay, when we move the mouse over an element, that is when it gets fired. On mouse out, when the mouse is moved out of that particular element, suppose I have div, from div I will move out, that is when it will get fired. On mouse move, mouse was moved while over an element, when it is on the div, when you move the mouse, okay, when mouse out will fire when you go out of that div, but inside the div if you are moving, that is when this will get fired, this particular event will get fired. Keyboard events, there are three keyboard events. On key down, so when you press a particular button, this will get fired. On key down, this event will be fired. Then on key press, okay, user presses the key when you press down and you come up. So basically there are three events associated. One is the when you press down the key, when you press down, first event. Press up, second event. When these both happens, that is when you pressing the happens, then that is the third. On key press, suppose you want to take certain action when mouse is pressed, you can use this one. After, when it is going up, this will be fired, you want to take some action. And completely after pressing and giving that particular value, if it is an input text box, when user clicks A and he completes that action, that is when on key press event will be fired. So this is the example of a keyboard event. Okay, so we'll finish with this, and form events we will look in the next class. Here is the example. In the HTML document, I have a input field which is of type text. Means there is a input field is there, and I can give a text input to that, and name of that element, the ID of that element is given as key example. The input box above, for example, could be listened to, and each key pressed encoded back to the user as an alert, as shown in the figure listing 615. So I have in the form, I have one input which is of the type text, which will take input as the text, and its ID is key example. How to make a listener work on this? So this is how the implementation. You will say document dot get element by ID and key example. So we will get this object. So this particular element object is accessed here, and dot on key down. So on key down is when you press the particular button on the keyboard, what will happen is equal to anonymous function. I'm using an anonymous function here. Function, my function, that particular element is passed here, and inside that I have a variable key pressed e dot key code, whatever is the this is the element that is passed, and I get the code, whatever is the code, whichever the key user has pressed, whether he has pressed A, B, C, or any number 1, 2, 3, that particular code will be taken. Okay, whatever the encoding methodology, that code will be taken here, and it is stored in the key pressed. Then I have character. Character is equal to string dot from char code. So we want to convert that to a string, so it is in a some kind of a code, some kind of a encoding is there. So using this string dot from char code method, I will convert that code into a string. Once that is converted into string, it is stored in the character. Then I use alert key concatenation character. Okay, whatever user character user has pressed, you will get a pop-up window saying that key, let us say user pressed letter L, key L was pressed. That is what you will see whenever we type any input there. That is when a pop-up will come up. So form events we will see it in the next class.